This game was awesome. Top 10 showdown in the SEC. Number 9 Georgia enters 7-0 at home against top 10 opponents under Kirby Smart. Number 5 Ole Miss seeking their first ever win in Athens against a ranked Georgia team. Opening drive of the third, Ole Miss up by 1. Trinidad Chambliss to Kenjon Stribling, and he's gone 75 yards. Ole Miss up 28-20. The Rebels scoring a touchdown on all 4 drives of the game thus far. Ensuing Georgia possession, first and goal, Gunner Stockton to Lawson Lucky. Georgia fails on the 2-point try, should have tied it. Cash Jones was wide open, and they just missed him. They didn't even go to him. Down 28-26. Ensuing Ole Miss possession, Chambliss to Deuce Alexander. Look at that snag. Kenyon, that looks like you.
Listen, I wish, if only.
What a catch by Alexander. Chambliss keeps it himself, muscles his way in, up 35-26, his second rushing touchdown of the game. Shouts to D2 Ferris State, the transfer. Ole Miss drives, 5 touchdowns. Fourth quarter, first and goal for Georgia. Stockton and Nate Frazier. Dogs down 2, 11 straight scoring drives to start the game. After the first punt of the game, Stockton to Lucky. Third touchdown of the game for him. Georgia takes the lead after another Ole Miss 3-and-out. Georgia with a 2nd and 12. Stockton to Dylan Bell. Richard, ding, ding.
You say what you want about Gunner Stockton, but the deep ball, he throws them about as good as anybody in college football. That's a fact.
Led to a field goal to take a 43-35 lead. Ole Miss needs a touchdown and 2 to force OT, and they're not going to get nothing. They don't get anything. Turnover on downs. Georgia kneels it out and completes the comeback to win it 43-35. Why? Because they outscored the Rebels 17-0 in the fourth quarter. Gunner Stockton was awesome in this game. 26 of 31, 289, 4 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. I mean, you're telling me that your quarterback's doing that? That's pretty awesome when you talk about getting some big-time production when you're at home against the number 5 team in the country. The Dogs now 8-0 at home against top 10 opponents under head coach Kirby Smart. Their 9th win in the last 11 games against top 5 opponents. And now for Ole Miss, they fall to 0-13 all-time on the road against a ranked Georgia team. All right, back here in studio, Kenyon Barner, Richard Johnson, Hakeem Dermish here. And look, the difference in this game, I'm going to read you these drives here, Kenyon. Ole Miss's last 3 drives, punt, downs. Georgia's last 3 drives, touchdown, field goal. Look, you could, if you didn't watch this game, well, shame on you because this game was awesome. But the fourth quarter was electric. When you saw what Georgia was able to do, what stuck out to you in that fourth quarter by the Dogs?
Listen, this game in general was the perfect example of it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yep.
And when you look at this Georgia defense, that was the difference. It was this defense waking up and being that championship caliber defense that Georgia is known to have. So those guys waking up, being able to make the big stops and get Ole Miss off the field, which you couldn't do entirely the entire first half, that was the difference.
The word finish. That is the word that I love that you use, Kenyon, because it's the 2nd week in a row you have seen them, hey, you know, it looks a certain way in the first half. Today it looked a certain way for the first 3 quarters. But at the end, in winning time, championship mentality in this Georgia program, these Georgia Bulldogs do not know when they're beat. They have no idea, no clue when they're beat. Because at the end of the day, they just finish. They are playing for 60 minutes. And they know that at the end of the day, if they give their max effort and they play with a certain mentality, there is just such a culture of belief in that program that at the end, the cream will rise to the top, and it has.
The question for Georgia was their defense, right? Because at halftime, this game was 21-20, and it's the 3rd time this season allowing 20 points in the first half of a game. They did that 3 times in the previous 4 seasons combined. So you're sitting there go, what's wrong with this defense? They don't have the guys. They don't have the technique. They don't have the strategy, whatever it might be, Richard. And we talked about this when we were watching the game, about this difference in terms of defense for Georgia. But they're finding ways to win at the end of the game is what we talked about finishing. But do you have those concerns, though? Because this is a team with a 1 loss. They hand Ole Miss their first loss of the season. Do you have concerns about the Georgia defense?
We got to see how they get better over the course of the season. I think right now it's unfair to compare this Georgia team to those great Georgia defenses in 2021 and 22. I understand why everybody's going to do it.
Most of those guys are in the NFL.
Right, but most of those guys plays on Sunday. All those guys play on Sunday. All right? It's a different team. You got to evaluate what this team is doing right now. And over the course of this season, can this team get better? They don't have a ton of margin for error. Granted, we do know that as far as the Bulldogs are concerned. But what is the identity of this team? Maybe they're just gonna outscore teams. Maybe they're just gonna say, we're gonna have one more point at the end of it than you will. And I know it's kind of odd, and I know that probably keeps Kirby Smart up at night, but at the end of the day, that may just be the team that you have.
Listen, there's some teams that have a defense with the mentality and the mindset of bend, don't break, right? And all you want from your defense is please just don't break. This Georgia defense doesn't do that. Outside of the one loss that they have, this is a Kirby Smart team. We know that this team is going to be tough. We know that they're going to be physical. We know that they're going to come to play. So I don't doubt the Georgia Bulldogs for one instant.
You know why you don't doubt Georgia for one instance? They have Gunnar Stockton. This kid had 5 total touchdowns, 4 passing, 1 through the air. He was nearly perfect when you look at his numbers. When you talk about being able to lead your team late in the game, they missed that because Kenjon and I were watching this. The 2-point conversion, okay? We were watching this game, and you had a chance to make it 28-all. Cash Jones is in motion, and you told me what about Gunnar Stockton in that moment?
Predetermine who we wanted to go to with the ball.
Yep.
Absolutely, and that's something for you young quarterbacks out there. That's something that we cannot do.
Here it is.
When you watch this, there we go, you watch this play. Once the back is motioning out, the job of the back is to out-leverage the defense, and as a quarterback, you have to keep your eyes on the guy who's covering the back, and he took his eyes off of him. But in my mind, again, it was about him predetermining who he wanted to go with the ball with, and this was the end result of the play. Should have been a 2-point conversion, should have been all even, but when you predetermine things, sometimes it doesn't go your way.
Yeah, at the end of the day, people are going to overlook that, but I guarantee you, Kirby Smart is going to go back in the film room, they're going to look at that play. That's going to be one that they will look at this week. They'll say, Gunnar, we know that you had as many touchdowns as you did incompletions, but you missed a guy right here.
Yeah, and credit to Ole Miss on this play, by the way, because one of the things that I think Georgia has been shaky at this year is the tackles. That tackle situation has been a little odd, and so coverage, lock-up coverage, and then they're able to get home there with pressure because of the coverage sack down there in the low red zone for that 2-point conversion. So, we talk about what could hold Georgia back. Like, I know we're eyeing the defense, obviously, but to me, it could be the offensive line situation if it's still somewhat in flux, injury concerns and stuff as we come down the stretch.
I want to talk about Ole Miss's quarterback, Trinidad Chambliss. Here's a kid from Division II Ferris State. I mean, maybe he should just went Division I. In terms of how good he is, he had a couple rushing touchdowns. We saw Kawan Lacey have a couple rushing touchdowns. They started this game hot. When you look now, they've got 1 loss, this Ole Miss team. This is a very good team. They just didn't finish. What is your takeaway from a game like this when you're going against this level of competition? And look, you're facing this kind of competition week in and week out. They're able to beat LSU, but we saw LSU lose to, and no disrespect to Vanderbilt, but this is not the same LSU team from years past. When you look at the ability for Ole Miss to run the table up until here against Georgia, and then look, they got Oklahoma coming up, but this is a team that can get back to college football playoff, Richard.
Yeah, but I would be careful.
You would?
If I'm this Ole Miss team. This Ole Miss team lost a dumb game last year when they went to the Swamp and lost to Florida with their college football playoff on the line. This Ole Miss team only beat Washington State by 3 points last week at home. Had to hold on to do that. There is a dumb loss in this Ole Miss team, I think, down the stretch, and they better be careful because the SEC, there's so much going on right now in the SEC. I understand Ole Miss has designs on sneaking into Atlanta. They may not be able to do that if they're not on that P's and Q's. And at the end of the day, that Egg Bowl, Thanksgiving weekend, throw the records out. You never know what's going to happen in that game. And Mississippi State is certainly no pushover this year. So I'd be careful if I was Ole Miss. Gotta bring it every week for them.
So for them to get to the college football playoff, they can't afford another loss. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think they can. And I think looking at next week versus Oklahoma, that is a game that it's a must win.
Yeah.
You have to win that game. I don't think they could lose 2 games and still squeak in.
They cannot leave it up to the committee.
No.
And you leave it up to the committee if you lose another game.
Yeah.
Well said. Richard Johnson, Kenjon Barner. Awesome game. Georgia hands Ole Miss its first loss of the season. Rebels chasing a college football playoff spot. Georgia doing the same. All these teams trying to make the college football playoff. Here we are in week 8. It's crunch time. These are the moments when your season is determined. And look, you got Lane Kiffin, and you're thinking, man, we're gonna go to the college football playoff this season. We missed out, and now this is the year. And Kirby Smart just figures out a way to win. Look at this when trailing by 2 or more possessions in the fourth quarter. Kirby Smart. I mean, trailed by 9, and just finds a way to win. That's the end of the day. You just got to finish. You heard what Kenjon said. He said you got to finish, and that's what they do, outscoring Ole Miss 17-0 in the fourth quarter.